So this is meant to be a really quick video on how to configure Zoom, get it up and running, and change your audio settings, I think most importantly, so you can make sure you're hearing everybody and also everybody else can hear you. We're going to go over how to tweak audio settings for Windows and for Mac. And we'll start with that actually, which is going to be really quick. So usually the issues specifically with your microphone are on your computer, not necessarily on Zoom. So I'll show you how on Windows and Windows 10 how to change your microphone settings, and then we'll swap over to Mac and I'll show you what it looks like over there also. So like I said, this is Windows 10. I'll show you what it looks like on an older Windows machine also, but for Windows 10, you're just going to drop over here to your search bar or go ahead and hit your Windows key and you're going to type in sound. That'll bring up sound settings and you can see a couple different things here. First, we have what our speaker settings are, and you can adjust your volume, obviously. You can also run through an automated troubleshooter if you can't hear anything coming out of your speakers. And you can select a different set of speakers in case your system has multiple sets of speakers attached to it. Sometimes this can be like for a laptop that has external speakers, but then also internal speakers on your laptop. Down beneath that, we can see the microphone. And this is what we're seeing a lot of, where either we can't hear you at all, or we can hear you just a little bit, but certainly not enough to, have an interaction. So you can see that my microphone is working properly because this little bar is jumping up and down with my voice. That means it's recognizing my voice and the audio volume is appropriate. If you're finding that you have no jumping up and down at all, you may have either a defective microphone or you have multiple microphones attached to that system, and you can select a different one here if that's the case. So you can see that I have two. Right now I'm on a USB-based microphone, but I also have one attached to my webcam if I wanted to switch to that. If you're not seeing any bouncing around and you have multiple microphones, try a different one out, see if it works. If your microphone is jumping, but just a little bit, and people can't hear you that well, go over here to device properties, give that a click, and this volume level actually adjusts the volume that your microphone is transmitting to Zoom or to WebEx, for example. So it increases the volume that people can hear you with. Here you can adjust it. Mine's set at 86, but I can just as easily jump up to 88 or drop it down, which you can probably barely hear me now. But if I go back up to where I was and I hit test, you can see again, this will start to animate a little bit and you can see where your voice is dropping up to. And basically, if you kind of picture the middle of this bar, if your voice is just hitting that at the very loudest that it gets during your speech, then you're good to go. That's exactly where you want it to be, and everyone will be able to hear you properly on Zoom. This also has an automated troubleshooter, so if you find yourself kind of stuck, go ahead and hit troubleshoot, and maybe we'll be able to figure out what's going on and correct it for you. This will be for Windows 10. Older versions of Windows may or may not have that, depending on what revision you're running on. For older versions of Windows in general, to get to these settings, once again, you'll probably hit your start button here and you'll have control panel. So go ahead and find that. Or you can just search if you have a search bar in your current version of Windows. But this is going to bring us to the same place that we were before. So we're just going to go to control panel. Once I get that in there, great. Once we get there, we're going to see hardware and sound. Click that. And then you'll see sound. And we want to go to manage audio devices. Click that. It'll bring up your speakers to begin with, which are considered playback. Where we want to go for microphone settings is in recording. So here you can see all the recording devices that I currently have attached to my system. You can see there are two microphones. They are both operating because the green bars are jumping. And if you want to change the settings for any of these, for example, the one that I'm on right now, you're just going to double click it. It's going to bring up another menu, and you want to go to the Listen tab, or excuse me, the Levels tab. The Levels tab will bring you to the same place we were before on Windows 10. It's just the older way of looking at it, and legacy versions of Windows will have this menu. So again, drag it up, drag it down, depending on where you want your volume to be, louder or softer, and go ahead and hit OK, and that's it. So very, very simple for Windows, and it's even a little bit more simple for Mac. So I'm going to go ahead and switch screens that I'm sharing right now. So let me stop sharing on this, and then we'll go over to Mac, and we'll share on that. So here we are on Mac. Pretty simple. You want to bring up your sound settings. You can do that either through System Preferences, or you can just do it through Spotlight. However you get to Spotlight, go ahead and do that. I usually hit Command Spacebar, and just like Windows, type in sound. This will bring up your sound menu for Macintosh. This already kind of defaults it, right? So you can see here, I can see all of my different sound settings, whether or not my microphone is jumping, which is good. I'm hitting about the halfway mark, which is where you want to be for volume for microphones. And if you find it too loud or too soft, just drag this up and down. And that should work pretty perfectly for communicating via Zoom. So Mac is much easier than Windows, at least, to get to the sound settings. So just go ahead and tweak those and you should be good to go. Stop sharing over here and we're going to jump back over to Zoom itself and I'll show you a couple things there. So here's the actual Zoom window, and there are some audio settings here also. Now, again, you can tweak audio from Zoom. However, the underlying issue may be within your Windows system or your Mac system to begin with. So check what I just showed you beforehand. But if you get into Zoom, you can run some tests here and figure out whether or not it's working through the Zoom application itself. These little carrots or up arrows bring you into the menus for the audio or for the video respectively. So right now we're in audio. You can see my microphones here. I can select or deselect whichever one I want to use. My speakers. And I can also run a quick little test. And this is handy to do maybe before you join the meeting. You can test your speakers and microphone. And what it'll do is it'll play a little sound, and then it'll also play back your voice to you to make sure that A, you can hear the Zoom meeting, and B, that you can be heard. So I'll click that and you'll hear a sound. So we heard that, we just hit yes. And now it's gonna ask me to talk and then it's gonna play it back. So we just hit yes and yes, and that means we're good to go. If you couldn't hear either one of those, either yourself or the chimes that it played, go ahead and play around with the settings, refer back to the first part of the video, and hopefully you can get it situated. As far as video is concerned, there's a couple different things we can do here. You can select a webcam. So if you have multiple webcams on your system, you can go ahead and select which one you want to be utilizing for Zoom. You can also change your video settings, which we'll go ahead and just look at those very quickly. So here's my video settings. You can see me. I have a background set up. I'll show you that in a sec. But here's just a couple settings that you can play with. You can either go widescreen or original. Don't really worry about that one. Enable HD. You can mirror it. This will either show you as if you were looking at yourself in a mirror or not. So you can change this back and forth. Has quite little relevance, to be honest. You can touch up your appearance, which isn't never a bad thing, I guess, depending on what your age happens to be. It certainly looks better for me. And then you can do a couple other things for how you want your participants displayed. None of that's a big deal. You know, leave this alone, don't leave it alone, whatever you want to do, play around with it a little bit. What's fun though is when you can actually start using the virtual backgrounds. So I'll start my video really quick. You can see there's my virtual background that I have right now, which is just a picture of the Earth. If you want to change these, hit this up arrow again and then choose virtual background. By default, Zoom will have none. So you guys won't see any of these pictures like I have in mine. It'll just show your normal background, whatever's actually literally behind you. Go online, go to Google, whatever. These are just regular wallpapers. There's nothing special about them whatsoever. They're just wallpapers. Download them, put them in a folder, and then hit add. And when you hit add, you can either add an image or you can add a video. You can actually have live wallpapers to Zoom, assuming you have a really good internet connection. Otherwise, the video doesn't work so well. We'll stick to images. Once you add images, if they're in your download folder, you would just go ahead and select whichever one of those you want, and you should be good to go, and then select it. So if you want to have, the aurora behind you, and this one is a video, so you can kind of see that it's animated behind me. That's kind of cool. But for kids, Minecraft backgrounds is kind of cool, so you can change that. And there's nothing necessary for this, right? There's no green screen behind me. You guys saw my regular wall, so there's nothing special you have to do here. Forest scenes. Again, these are just wallpapers that you're downloading online. There is nothing special here at all to do the virtual backgrounds. They're a lot of fun. We use them a ton, for office meetings, and kids certainly like these things as well. So maybe give those a shot if you want to play around a little bit with Zoom and have a good background going. Not have to worry about your son or your daughter cleaning up his or her room, which is certainly a concern with ours. But anyway, really good stuff, easy to use. Let me go ahead and stop the video here. But that's about it. There is really not much else to the audio. Hopefully you don't have any issues. If you do, Ms. Richards has sent out an email address that you can respond to if you need to get some technical help. Unfortunately, I don't have any instructions to do any of this with Chromebook. at least as far as the audio settings are concerned. But typically with any system, if you hit the search button on your desktop, for example, and type in sound or type in microphone, you should be able to find very similar settings to what I showed you for Windows and Mac, and hopefully be able to figure it out. Zoom is going to be the same across all platforms. So everything that I just showed you there from a Zoom perspective will be very, very similar to add in the backgrounds and to change your virtual background during a web meeting. So hopefully this is helpful, and take care.